Welcome in. You already know what time it is. Alex Cloninger in the building. Let's dive into the Nexus. Let's dive into the Nexus. Step into the zone. Carolina stories got a life of their home. From the pages to the labs, yeah, we break it all down. If you love those books, you're at the right sound. Let's dive into the Nexus. Yeah, the mic stay reckless. Hometown justice, legends in the message. Casey Oakins on the trail, solving cases non-stop. Turn it up loud, yeah, the Nexus don't stop. We talk block twist, characters, theories. Author Q&A, getting answers you've been hearing. Special guests slide through, pull up a seat. Chaotic conversations with the Carolina heat. From small town drama to the mysteries deep. Every chapter got secrets we're ready to keep. Laughs laid back with the energy wild. If you read Cloninger, you already family now. Let's dive into the Nexus, step into the zone. Carolina stories got a life of their own. From the pages to the laughs, yeah, we break it all down. If you love those books, you're at the right sound. Let's dive into the Nexus, come and connect us. Alex Cloninger live, yeah, you rockin' with the Nexus. Hit play, stay tuned. Every episode fresh. Welcome to the Carolina Nexus. Brought to you straight from Carolina soil. Press play and let's dive in.
Welcome to the Carolina Nexus podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, I am your host, Alex Cloninger, the author of the Carolina Nexus book series. We're back from the live reading. I'm going to give you a recap of the last 3 chapters we read. I have an announcement to make concerning the book going forward. And I want to give a shout out to my little boy Ty, his mom Amber, and my daughter Paisley. They're watching in the living room. How are you guys doing? Thanks for joining us. All right, before I dive into the recap, let me make an announcement. It was just brought to my attention by my wife and several other people that have read the books. During the transition from my computer to the editor, and from the editor back to my computer, and then up to Amazon, a chapter has been completely deleted from Tigapagon, Taming the Tiger, or Enter the Tiger, I'm sorry. So chapter 27 has been completely omitted, and I cannot find it anywhere on my computer. I'm going to have to rewrite it, which means I have to re-release the book, which means a lot of stuff is going to have some open threads until I rewrite this chapter. I apologize. It was never my intention as an author or the editor's intention as an editor to delete an entire chapter and have the book published without realizing it. So the mistake has been realized. We're taking measures now to correct said mistake and move forward with it. With that being said, with the chapter being deleted, I don't remember everything that went on in this chapter, but if something that is mentioned in the future chapters relates to something that happened in chapter 27, I will definitely point it out to you guys. Chapter 24, 25, and 26 is what we read last episode. And I'm going to give you guys a quick recap. Alex and Ken rushed into the burning building where Boa Fang Dojo had set Kwando's on fire. Alex and Ken rushed in to save Sensei and Tai. A flashback fills in what happened exactly. Douglas led the Boa Fang students in a premeditated attack while Tyson was teaching young children. Sensei ordered Tai to evacuate the kids while he held off the attackers alone, and Tai was knocked unconscious trying to go back for him. In the present, Alex and Ken used their Rai powers to survive the heat and intense heat and smoke to find Tai and Sensei. They found them both unconscious, and they used advanced Rai techniques to revitalize them. With the building collapsing around them, Tai communicates and convinces a reluctant Ken to use his full ape-style abilities to escape and bring help, while Alex holds a newly advanced technique, the Tiger-style Guardian Shield, to protect the other 3 until rescue arrives. Everyone survives. Alhan and Eunice take Sensei and Tai in to recover while the dojo is still being put out and then investigation happens. That night, Sensei tells Alhan he intends to withdraw Kwando School from the tournament, believing he failed in his duty to protect his students, and he is unwilling to risk more lives to make a point against Usanagi. Alex and Tai overhear this from the hallway. Eunice, catching them eavesdropping, later raises a sharp point to Alhan Sensei both. Withdrawing might not protect the boys, it may just invite Boafeng to force their hand another way, which is foreshadowing for those of you that aren't familiar. Moving into chapter 25, an emergency meeting for the tournament committee. Sensei formally withdraws Kwando School from the tournament, prioritizing his students' safety over competition. Alhan warns the other dojos that an outside investigator, Detective Marcus Chin, is coming, and that whichever dojo is found responsible for the attack and subsequent burning down of the Kwando dojo will face permanent international bans, a clear message aimed at Usanagi. Privately, Usanagi is furious with his students for celebrating. The goal wasn't to make Kwandos quit, but to humiliate them publicly at the tournament, and the withdrawal plus outside investigation has backfired on them. Douglas proposes a new plan. They're going to kidnap Allison, having deduced Alex's connection to the Kwando dojo and Allison being his weak point, and use coward Marcus Bagwell as an unwitting, coerced messenger to force Kwando School to compete again. That night, masked figures abduct Allison from her workplace and force her to record a hostage video. In chapter 26, Marcus delivers the VHS to the Ruler family farm in terror. Once Amy is safely off to church, Alex and Alhan, Tai, and Sensei watch the video. Allison is restrained and frightened, but composed. Delivers the demand that the Kwando School must compete or she'll pay for their quote-unquote cowardice. Seeing this, Alex's wrath erupts uncontrolled, a darker, more dangerous manifestation than his trained tiger style. And Sensei has to forcibly suppress it to keep it from burning out his spirit. Once stabilized, Alex declares he will compete unaffiliated to get to Douglas, regardless of the consequences. Sensei tells him plainly competing means he can no longer be a student at Kwando School. Alex accepts this trade without hesitation, even as Tai and Ken object. Meanwhile, in a parallel thread, Allison, released after 3 days of captivity, makes an exhausting, disoriented trek through unfamiliar Blacksburg, South Carolina, piecing together fragments of her captivity. The chemical rag, the blindfold, overheard arguments about waiting for the tournament announcement, and finally collapses in the police department into the arms of Sheriff Dave Crawford, managing to say only tell Alex before losing consciousness. And that is where we left off. I have received messages from my wife telling me never to make her feel any type of way about Allison ever again. And that's where we're at. So now I'm going to dive into chapter 28 because, again, chapter 27 has been irreplaceably deleted and I'm going to have to rewrite it. Where we open with chapter 28, guys, apparently in chapter 27, there was a discussion between the adults and it was decided to use Alex as bait to get Boafeng to admit their wrongdoing. So we open up at the butt end of that discussion right now. Absolutely not. Eunice Ruler's protective anger filled Alhan's office. He is 13 years old. I don't care what Douglas Kennedy or anyone else demands. My son is not participating in some dangerous tournament. So I'm going to stop right here. Also, they had a... Hang on. They had a town-wide press conference about Allison's safe return, how she was found, and the tournament coming up. And this was after... This all takes place after the press conference. They had retreated to Alhan's office after the press conference, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows through the blinds. Mr. Jurgens sat with his arms around his wife on the leather couch while Tiffany perched on his arms, obsessively checking her phone. Alex stood near the window, trying to look more grown up than his 7th grade frame allowed, but his mother's words made him flinch. With all due respect, Mrs. Ruler, Mr. Jurgens said, his voice hoarse from emotion, if Alex thinks he can help find our daughter by putting himself in danger, Mrs. Ruler cut in, he's a child. You saw the video from last year's regionals. That Kennedy boy put a high school student in a coma. You want my middle schooler to face him without even having his sensei in his corner? Mom. Alex turned from the window, his voice carrying a determination that seemed older than his years. I know you're scared, but Allison needs. The sharp ring of Alhan's office phone cut through the tension. Everyone jumped slightly at the sound. Alhan reached for the receiver, noting the caller ID, Blacksburg Police Department. Sheriff Fuller speaking, he answers, holding up a hand to quieten the room. His eyes widened as he listened. Yes, yes, I understand. When exactly? Yes, they're all here with me now. Actually, we'll be there right away. The receiver hadn't settled into its cradle before Mrs. Jurgens lurched forward. What is it? Did they find? Alhan nodded, a smile breaking across his face. Allison's alive, and she's at. I, I'm sorry, the page is blurry. Give me a second. She's at the Grady Memorial Hospital in Gaffney. Sheriff Crawford stood waiting in the emergency department lobby when they arrived. Despite having been ready to end his shift when Allison stumbled into his station, his uniform was still crisp, though his face showed the strain of the past hour. The automatic doors had barely slid open before Mrs. Jurgens rushed forward. Where is she? Is she okay? She's being treated for dehydration and exhaustion, Crawford answered, gesturing for everyone to gather around. Dr. Matthews is with her now. They're running some tests, but physically she appears relatively unharmed. Sheriff Ruler stepped forward to shake Crawford's hand. Dave, what happened? Well, that's the strange thing. She walked into our station about an hour ago, barely on her feet. Said she'd been released from a storage unit off Cherokee Falls Highway. Crawford's jaw tightened. We've got forensics going over the unit now, but whoever had her there cleared out pretty thoroughly. A storage unit? Mrs. Jurgens' voice cracked. All this time she was just less than an hour away, Crawford confirmed. She managed to walk the 2 miles from there to our station. Tough kid you got. Alex hung back near his mother, his earlier bravado crumbling. His hands fidgeted with the hem of his shirt, a nervous habit he thought he'd broken during his first month of training. The fluorescent hospital lights seemed too bright, the antiseptic smell too sharp. Everything that had happened, Allison's kidnapping, leaving the dojo, challenging Douglas, suddenly felt overwhelming. Tiffany noticed his distress and moved away from her parents. She guided Alex to a quiet corner of the room, away from the adults' conversation. Hey, Romeo, she said softly, using the nickname that usually made him blush. Today it somehow steadied him. You know none of this is your fault, right? Alex swallowed, looking down at his sneakers. They took her because of me. Because they wanted me in the tournament. If I hadn't... Stop. Tiffany's voice was gentle but firm. Look at me, Alex. He raised his eyes, reluctantly surprised to see tears in hers. You're my little sister's boyfriend, so I'm going to be straight with you. These past 3 days, they've been to hell, but not once did Mom, Dad, or any of us blame you. You're 13 dealing with stuff that would terrify most adults, and instead of running away, you stood up in front of the whole town to fight for her. But Sensei Kwando will understand, just like we do. She squeezed his shoulder. Allison's alive. She's safe. That's what matters. And knowing her, she's going to probably be worried sick about you this whole time. A nurse emerged from the treatment area before Alex could respond. Family for Allison Jurgens, she smiled gently at the group. She's asking for the family, and specifically for someone named Alex. Alex froze. Tiffany gave him a gentle push forward. Go on, tough guy. She needs to see that you're okay, too. Taking a deep breath, Alex stepped forward to join the Jurgens as they followed the nurse. His mom caught his eye, her earlier anger softened by concern and love. She nodded once, letting him know it was okay to go. 3 days, but it had felt like a lifetime since he'd last seen Allison. What would he say? What could anyone say after something like this? But as they approached her room, Alex remembered what Sensei always said about courage. It wasn't about not being scared, it was about moving forward anyway. Taking a deep breath, Alex moved to follow the Jurgens family down the hall. He hesitated when he realized his mother wasn't coming. Mom? Mrs. Roller stood rigid near the waiting room chairs, her face a mask of barely controlled emotion. Go ahead, she said tightly. I'll wait here with your father. Sheriff Ruler exchanged a look with Sheriff Crawford before touching his wife's shoulder. Eunice, he needs to be safe, she cut him off, voice low but intense. Not running headfirst into danger because of some girl. We'll discuss this later, Sheriff Ruler said quietly, then nodded to Alex. Go on, son, she's waiting on you. The nurse led them down a short hallway, lined with identical rooms. She's still a bit groggy from the IV fluids and a mild sedative we gave her, she explained, but she's been asking for all of you. Since she regained consciousness, she paused outside of room 112. Try not to overwhelm her. Mrs. Jurgens entered first, a sob catching in her throat at the sight of her daughter. Allison lay propped up against the white hospital pillows, and ivy line Allison lay propped up against the white hospital pillows, an IV line trailing from her arm, her pale skin against the institutional sheets. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, but they brightened when she saw her family. "Mom," she whispered, her voice still rough. "Dad, Tiff." They rushed to her bedside, careful of the medical equipment as they embraced her. Alex hung back in the doorway, his heart pounding. She looked so small in that hospital bed, so different from the laughing girl who'd kissed him goodbye after school 3 days ago. Then Allison's eyes found his eyes over her mother's shoulder. "Alex?" Something in her voice, relief, fear, need, something broke his paralysis. He moved to the bed as her family made space for him. His hand trembled as she reached for his, but her grip was surprisingly strong when their fingers interlocked. "I knew you'd do something stupid," she said, managing a weak smile. "Entering the tournament, really?" A laugh that was almost a sob escaped him. Even after everything, she was worried about him. "I had to do something. They took you." I heard them talking about it. Her fingers tightened around his. "About making you fight." "Alex, you can't." "Shh," Mrs. Jurgens interrupted gently. We can worry about all that later. Right now, you just need to rest." But Allison's eyes stayed locked on Alex's, trying to tell him something without words. He squeezed her hand in response. Whatever came next, whatever he had to face in the tournament, seeing her alive made it all worth it. In the waiting room, Mrs. Ruler watched the sheriffs confer in low voices about surveillance and evidence collection. Her hands clenched into fists as she caught fragments about the tournament, about using her 13-year-old son as bait to draw out Boafang. "He's just a child," she whispered to herself, anger and fear warring her chest. "And that girl, family, they're going to get him killed." Eunice, that family happens to be the best friends we've had in years. They've eaten supper at our home every other Sunday for the last 5. Allison and Alex have grown up together. They aren't trying to get Alex killed. He's old enough to make decisions himself. I cannot force him to sit this one out without making things worse on him at school. Alhan explains, taking Eunice's hand. "Our son is making friends. He's gained confidence and he has an amazing girlfriend. I think we should trust him. He has only been training with Sensei Kwando for a little under half a year. Plenty of time for him to learn a few tricks to defend himself." "I do not like it," Mrs. Ruler frowns. "You two are planning on dangling my child like live bait for these clowns with snakes on their backs." The emergency room doors whooshed open, and Tai burst in with Sensei Kwando close behind. They were both still in their gis, apparently coming straight from the barn. When Tai spotted Rulers, his face went pale. "Sheriff Ruler, is Alex?" Tai's voice cracked with panic. "Alex is fine," Sheriff Ruler quickly assured him. "He's with the Jurgens. Allison has been found." Relief washed over Tai's face, but Sensei Kwando's expression remained grave. He studied the two sheriffs with knowing eyes. "You suspect Boafang?" It wasn't a question. Sheriff Crawford straightened, suddenly more alert. "You know something about them?" "More than I wish to," Sensei Kwando's voice carried years of weight. "We are actually here to see a family friend. Perhaps it is not coincidence that brought us here now." Mrs. Ruler's eyes narrowed. "Your student is about to fight one of theirs, a high schooler who put someone in a coma, and you expelled Alex for agreeing to it." "I expelled no one," Sensei Kwando replied calmly. "Alex chose to leave so he could compete unaffiliated. There is a difference." He paused, choosing his next words carefully. "And there are things about Boafang that make surveillance complicated." "For Christ's sakes, man, if you know something, speak," Sheriff Crawford exclaims. "Boafang Sensei is dangerous man. Very dangerous." Yoshimoto calmly places a hand on Tai's shoulder. "Only seeks to harm Kwando name and reputation." "How dangerous are we talking?" Sheriff Ruler asked. "Napalming Cozy Mountain Village in hopes of destroying entire clan of Kwando dangerous." Yoshimoto sighs. "Tyson, it's time you learn." Time he learns what? Everyone turns to Alex, walking from the hallway with Allison's room in it. Alex and Tai touch fists. "Alexander-san, you two must learn truth about Boafang and Usanagi." Sensei Kwando begins his tale. "Kwando family discover Jankwang-do after training with Shimpo Miyagi many years ago. Perfect techniques, unlock Rai, discover the tiles. Grandmaster Kim Sung-young did not approve of Jankwang-do as a martial art due to the nature of the techniques." Sounds like he is only focused on brute strength, Alex interrupts, but you taught me that sometimes outthinking an opponent is better than overpowering them. Kim Sung Young orders the Kwando family to be eliminated, paid off longtime friend Usanagi, who had studied our techniques and knew how to counter them. Kim Sung Young loathes the use of Rai. Yoshimoto points to Tai's chest because of what he lacks here. Are you saying Usanagi is responsible for the murder of your entire family? Sheriff Ruler asked. Aye, and he brutally murdered my son, Heihachi Kwando, in what was called an exhibition match. Beside him, Tai tenses up. You were just a baby. Your mother pleaded with me to take you and leave. She wanted to save your father. She ran into the old dojo and made her way out of the village. 2 hours later, napalm was dropped on the village. Entire area burned to the ground, Yoshimoto explains. The silence that followed felt like glass about to shatter. Tai stood frozen, his hands clenched into fists so tight his knuckles had gone white. All these years he believed his parents had died in a car accident. But this was murder, and his father was killed in a rigged match, his mother running into flames trying to save him. The man who runs Boafang? Alex's voice was barely a whisper, the full weight of what he'd challenged family finally hitting him. The one who ordered Douglas to kidnap Allison, he's the same one who murdered my father? Tyson's voice cracked, and now his student's going to fight you. He turned to Alex, something dangerous flickering in his eyes. I should be the one. No. Sensei Kwando's hand tightened on Tai's shoulder. You carry too much anger now. It would blind you. Sheriff Crawford had already pulled out his radio. Dave here. I need surveillance teams pulled from the storage unit. New priority target is Boafang Dojo in Pokeville. Full coverage, but maintain distance. These people are dangerous. More dangerous than we thought. More dangerous? Mrs. Roller's laugh held at an edge of hysteria. They burned down a village to kill a family, and you're still planning to let my son... Eunice. Sheriff Roller's voice was gentle but firm. This changes things. We're not just trying to catch kidnappers now. We're dealing with people who've been killing with impunity for years. He turned to Sensei Kwando. We'll need everything you know about their methods, their patterns. And I need to train. Everyone looked at Alex. He stood straighter, looking older than his 13 years. Not just techniques. I need to know everything about Jang Kwang Do, about Rai, and about why they fear it so much. Alex, his mother began. Mom, please. He met her eyes. They didn't just hurt Allison, they hurt Ty's whole family. Someone has to stop them. Mrs. Ruler saw something in her son's face, then, not just determination, but understanding. He wasn't running blindly into danger anymore. He was choosing to face it, knowing exactly what it was. Sensei Kwando nodded slowly. We begin tonight. Both of you. He looked between Alex and Tai. The tournament is in 2 weeks. There is much you need to learn. Does this mean I am still fighting under Kwando's name? Alex asked, hopeful. Aye, we won't tell enemy that. Sensei Kwando gives a smirk. Let them think they won. We have much we need to plan, Sheriff Ruler added, sharing a look with Crawford. We're not just providing security anymore, we're setting a trap. For a snake, Tai said quietly, looking at the emblem on his gi, who's been hiding in plain sight for years. And with that, we're at the end of chapter 28. Riley's watching from Tennessee with my mom. I'm reading chapter 28, 29, and 30 tonight. We're opening up questions for chapter 28 at this point in time. Anybody got any questions about what I just read? So Allison was kidnapped to try to force Alex to fight in the tournament, and they got what they wanted. Riley asked why they're kidnapping Allison. See, you should have paid better attention when you were here last episode. When you were watching with your mom, you'd understood that instead of being in there being loud with the baby. Okay, so let me put it to you this way. If we go and do that route, there's no story to tell. This is all part of the plot. Alhan isn't arresting them right now because they really don't have the evidence. They just have Yoshimoto Kwando's word. There's no evidence pointing that Kusanagi done it. It's essentially Sensei Yoshimoto Kwando's word against Kusanagi's at this point. But if they can get them to admit to it, then it's a different story. Oh. I'm going to give a few more minutes for questions before we dive into the next chapter. Thanks for joining in, Alden. Okay, Riley. If I have no more questions, I'm going to go ahead and dive into chapter 29. It's very rare Amber only asked one question, though, for the chapter. So that makes me think she wasn't paying attention to this one. Oh, well. Diving into chapter 30, or 29 now. Breaking Dawn painted the ruler's backyard training ground in shades of gold and shadow. Three boys stood in formation, their gis still crisp despite the early hour. Behind them, bamboo training dummies waited silently for the day's punishment. Dragon style, Sensei Kwando called out. Tai stepped forward, his movements fluid as water. His strikes wove between the bamboo poles, each hit precise and flowing into the next. The style suited him, patient, adaptable, wearing down defenses through persistent grace. Tiger style. Alex moved next, his attack direct and powerful. Where Tai flowed, Alex struck. Each movement had purpose, momentum building like a wave until it crashed through his target. His eyes held the same intensity they'd carried since learning the truth about Boafang. Ape style. Ken's unusual style drew strength from unpredictability. He moved with like his namesake, sometimes playful, sometimes explosive, combining high attacks with low sweeps. His flexibility made him nearly impossible to pin down. Day after day, they trained, sometimes together, sometimes apart, but always pushing further. Ty mastered the dragon's sweep, a move his father had created. Alex developed his Tiger's Fury combination until the training dummies cracked under its power. Ken perfected the spinning monkey technique that could turn any opponent's strength against them. But it was in their unity that true power emerged. Again, Sensei called out as they moved through their group kata. Feel the energy between you. Let your Rai flow as one. Their synchronized movements created patterns of light in the air. Blue for Ty's patient power, red for Alex's focused fury, green for Ken's adaptive force. When their energies met, new colors bloomed. Between sessions, they collapsed in exhausted heaps, sharing water, comparing bruises. They talked about everything and nothing. School gossip, tournament strategies, their fears and hopes. Alex spoke of Allison's recovery. Ty processed his family's history. And Ken kept their spirits up with his irrepressible humor. You know what we are? Ty said one evening as they watched the sun set from the dojo's back steps. We're Tigapagon. We're what now? Ken raised an eyebrow. Tigapagon. Tiger, ape, dragon. 3 styles, 3 brothers, 1 force. Ty's voice carried the weight of certainty. That's what Boafang doesn't understand. They think strength comes from destroying what's different, but real power comes from bringing different styles together. Alex nodded slowly. Tigapagon, he tested the word. I like it. Well, Ken grinned, if we're making it official. He sprang up and grabbed 3 sodas from his bag, tossing one to each of them. To the Tigapagon. May we kick Boafang's scaly butt back to wherever they came from. They touched their cans together in the fading light. 3 young warriors bound by friendship, purpose, and the ancient arts they were making their own. Behind them, unseen, Sensei Kwando smiled. In all his years of teaching, he'd never seen 3 students more different in style yet more unified in spirit. Perhaps this is what his family had been working toward all along. Not just mastering techniques, but bringing them together in new ways. The tournament was days away now. Douglas Kennedy and Boafang waited, but they wouldn't be facing one style or one fighter. They would face the Tigapagon. Very short chapter, but any questions about that one? That was more of a transitional chapter. Okay, so this is probably hasn't been answered since I did the lore episode, so I'll answer it here. What made me choose the tiger, the ape, and the dragon? It's simple. When I started branching out the Kwando, Jane Kwangdo styles, and I used the animals, I chose the animals of the Ninjetti from Power Rangers Season 3. And in that, there was 6 styles. There was crane, ape, wolf, bear, frog, and ape. Okay? So, with, and no, rewind that a minute. Crane, ape, wolf, frog, bear, falcon. Those 6 styles do exist in my universe, but I chose dragon for Ty because originally there was supposed to be a dragon style Ninjetti. There never was one. We never got to see it, but there have been fan made cosplays of the dragon Ninjetti. I loved it. That became Ty style. For Alex, the tiger, everybody who knows me knows the Siberian white tiger is my favorite animal, and that's why Alex has white as his color and the tiger is his animal style. Ken got the ape because of the 3 styles as I made them, they complemented each other. The dragon's ferocity covers the ape's lack of speed. The ape's calmness covers the tiger's stealth. The tiger's speed covers the dragon's animosity. It was a weird thing that I drew up, but it made sense to me, and it makes sense in the universe now as I've continued fleshing it out. I'm excited to announce that chapter 30 officially puts us 5 chapters away from the end of the book. A serious Goofy question? I've never heard of Goofy being serious. Anyways, no, I was not watching Powerpuff Girls when that happened. That was the imagery that I got. Is also a typo. The colors are supposed to be red, green, and white, not red, blue, and green. But it fit the scenery, and I didn't change it. So, with that being said, if there's nothing directly related to chapter 29, we're going to dive into chapter 30. All right, chapter 30. Before I dive into this chapter, I took some creative liberties with my hometown of Pokeville, North Carolina. The outdoor sporting arena is essentially where the Pokeville Rodeo takes place at Pokeville Baptist Church. So if you're familiar with the area, that's what I'm talking about. Amber says, wait, question, with the tournament upcoming, are the boys nervous? Stay tuned to find out. We're about to answer that question. Chapter 30, the Pokeville Outdoor Sporting Arena hum with anticipation. Banners representing various dojos hung from the rafters. The coiled snake of Boafang, Lorenzo's proud lion, Topher's rising phoenix, but 3 competitors stood apart, their plain white gis marking them as unaffiliated. All participants, please gather for registration and bracket assignments. The announcer's voice echoed through the arena. Tournament officials bustled with clipboards and paperwork. The competitors lined up by dojo. Lorenzo students came first. Charles Johnson standing tall and confident, while Jason Stewart shadowboxed nearby. Both wore their signature red and gold gis, though there was a conscious gap where their third teammate should have been. Topher's group followed, their black and crimson uniforms pristine. Chad Milton led the trio, flanked by Arnold Taft and David Milton. They moved with military precision, every step measured and synchronized. Then came Boafang. Douglas Kennedy's presence seemed to drop the temperature in the room. David Brown and Eric Wilson flanked him like honor guards, and their black gis emblazoned with the silver snake. Douglas's eyes found Alex in the crowd, his smile cold and predatory. Finally, the unaffiliated fighter stepped forward. Alex, Ty, and Kid stood shoulder to shoulder, their plain white gis a stark contrast to the colorful uniforms around them. But there was something in their stance, a unity that transcended matching uniforms. The official cleared his throat. Registration will proceed as follows. From Lorenzo's Martial Arts Academy, Charles Johnson and Jason Stewart. From Phoenix Rising, David and Chad Milton, Arnold Taft. From Boafang, Douglas Kennedy, David Brown, and Eric Wilson. He paused, adjusting his glasses. Entering unaffiliated, Alexander Ruler, Tyson Kwando, and Kenneth Manson. A murmur rippled through the gathered crowd at the mention of unaffiliated fighters. Even rarer was the presence of a 7th grader in what was typically a high school division. Bracket drawings will commence in 15 minutes. All fighters report to your designated warm-up areas. Opening ceremonies begin at noon. As the groups dispersed, Douglas brushed past Alex, shoving his shoulder into Alex's. Brave of you to show up, ruler, he muttered. Stupid, but brave. Alex stayed silent, but Ken and Ty moved closer, their formation unconsciously shifting into a triangle stance they'd practiced so many times before. From the bleachers, Sensei Kwando watched the exchange, his face unreadable. Across the arena, Usanagi did the same, his weathered hands clasped behind his back. The tournament was about to begin, but everyone present knew this was more than just a competition. It was a reckoning years in the making, and these young fighters were its catalyst. All competitors approached for the bracket drawing, the head official announced. A large tournament board had been set up, its empty brackets waiting to be filled. As per tradition, we draw positions randomly to ensure fairness. 10 numbered balls rolled in a clear plastic container. Each fighter would draw their position, determining their path through the tournament. From Boafang, the official began, Douglas Kennedy. Douglas stepped forward, his movements deliberately slow and confident. He reached into the container and withdrew a ball, handing it to the official. Position 1. The official announced, writing Kennedy's name on the top bracket, a perfect position for the tournament favorite. The draws continued. David Brown pulled position 4, while Eric Wilson landed in position 7. David Milton took position 3, and Chad Milton took position 6. Arnold Taft took position 8. Charles Johnson and Jason Stewart drew 5 and 2, respectively. Finally, it was time for the unaffiliated entries. Ken drew first, landing position 9, setting him up against Eric Wilson in the first round. Ty pulled position 10, matching him against Arnold Taft. Alex stepped forward, acutely aware of Douglas watching him. Only one ball remained. He reached in and withdrew it. Position 11, the official announced, writing Alexander Ruler at the bottom of the brackets. The implications were clear. If both Alex and Douglas won their matches, they would meet in the finals, the longest possible path before they could fight each other. The bracket is set, the official declared. First round matches begin in 1 hour. Fighters, prepare yourself. Alex studied the tournament board, tracing the path. 3 victories. That's what it takes to reach Douglas. 3 fights to prove he belonged here. 3 battles before he could face the true enemy. Perfect, Douglas's voice carried across the group. Now everyone gets to write, watch you fight your way to me, if you can make it that far. He'll make it, Ty said firmly. Ken nodded in agreement. The 3 of them shared a look. They had trained for this. No matter what the bracket said, they would face this tournament as one. And there you have it. The preliminary rounds are about to begin. That is the end of Chapter 30. Questions, comments, concerns. Let's hear them. Riley, Alden, if you're still watching, ask questions, make statements. And while I'm waiting for the first question to come in, I'll check something out. I may go ahead and read Chapter 31 tonight, so the next episode we can finish out Enter the Dragon, or Enter the Tiger. Because in traditional martial arts tournaments, there are no... Hang on, let me bring this question up on screen. Why did the tournament committee allow a 7th grader to join a high school martial arts competition? First and foremost, it's a typo that has been corrected in the printed book. He's not a 7th grader, he's an 8th grader. Second off, in most martial arts tournaments, they don't do it based on your age or your weight, they do it based on your skill level. The committee allowed originally allowed Ty, Ken, and Alex to participate with Douglas because of Sensei Yoshimoto Kwando. Now that they're competing unaffiliated under the guise that they've made Sensei Kwando mad and they're going against his will, it's going to be a lot more difficult for them. I actually ran everything through a randomizer except for Douglas and Alex. I knew I wanted them on opposite ends of the spectrum. So everything was handpicked except for those two. I knew Douglas is going to be position 1 and Alex is going to be position 11. That's to keep them from fighting against each other too early. And apparently I read Ty to sleep, so that's how this works now. All right, if there are no more questions for chapter 30, as I said before, I'm going to go ahead and dive into chapter 31. So, at the next episode, we have 4 chapters to end this book, and we can go on to the next one. All right, guys, let's dive into this chapter 31. Pay attention, bring your questions at the end. David Milton dwarfed Alex in the ring. The rising sun fighter moved with practiced efficiency, his stance textbook perfect. But Alex had trained for bigger opponents. When the referee signaled to start, Milton charged forward with a combination that would have overwhelmed most 7th graders. Instead of backing away, Alex slipped inside the attack, his tiger style turning Milton's momentum against him. A swift leg sweep followed by a reverse punch scored the first point. Point ruler, the referee called. Milton's expression darkened. His next attack came faster, but Alex's training showed where Milton relied on power, Alex used precision. 3 exchanges later, it was over. Winner by points, Alexander Ruler. On the other mat, Ty made Lorenzo's experienced fighter look slow. Stewart had won tournaments before, but he'd never faced someone trained in the Dragon style. Every time he thought he had Ty cornered, the younger fighter flowed around his attacks like water. In rapid succession, point Kwando, point Kwando, point Kwando. The match ended with Ty executed a perfect Dragon's sweep. A move that brought a rare smile to Sensei Kwando's face. Ken's match against Arnold Taft started promisingly. His unorthodox ape style kept Arnold off balance, earning him quick points with acrobatic kicks and unpredictable angles. But Arnold hadn't placed in 3 straight tournaments for nothing. He adapted, using his experience to force Ken into a more traditional exchange. When the final bell rang, Arnold's technical precision had earned him a narrow victory. Winner by points, Arnold Taft. Ken bowed respectively, but his hands trembled at his sides. Alex and Ty were already moving to meet him as he left the mat. "I'm sorry," Ken stated. "I let the Tigapagon stop." Ty cut him off. You fought well. Now you help us prepare for what's next. Alex nodded. We're still one force. That doesn't change because of points. From his position near the officials' table, Douglas watched the exchange with narrowed eyes. Two unaffiliated fighters had advanced, but more importantly, they still acted as one unit despite the loss. The path to the finals was becoming clearer, but something about their unity made him uneasy. Perhaps Usanagi had been right to worry about more than just individual skill. Sensei, Douglas approached Usanagi in the warm-up area, his voice low. There's something different about how they fight. Ruler and Kwando, their techniques, they're not just copying Yoshimoto's style. Usanagi's face remained impassive, but his eyes followed the three boys as they huddled together. Ken actively demonstrating something he'd noticed during his match. What you see, Usanagi spoke carefully, is what Kim Sung-young feared. The Kwando style, tiger, dragon, ape. They were thought to remain separate, but these boys, he paused, his weathered hands clenching tightly, they share their knowledge freely. Even now, the one who lost teaches the others. But what that makes them weaker, doesn't it? Douglas frowned. Master Kim always said. Master Kim fears what he cannot control, Usanagi cut him off sharply. Watch their bodies when they fight. They do not stay coiled like ours. They adapt. Change. Then we stop them now, Douglas said. Before they can? No. Usanagi's voice carried an edge Douglas had never heard before. We proceed. As planned, young Douglas. When you face young Ruler in the finals, do not underestimate what he has learned from his friends. He trailed off, lost for a moment in the memories of another group of young fighters who once stood united. This brotherhood makes them dangerous in ways Master Kim never considered. Another short chapter, but I got that one out of the way. So next time we come live, I have 4 chapters until the end of the book. We can discuss the book in detail, and then we can go into Tigapagon, Enter the Dragon. This scene reminds me of the original Karate Kid when Daniel walks into the tournament against the original Cobra Kai. That's what I was watching at the time this particular chapter was being written. And you're right, it was a sad moment. Really? Because throughout this whole book, you've missed like 17 Easter eggs. Well, ask a question, ask a question, ask away. That is a good question. Why did Ken get picked to lose his match? Is it part of the plot or was it intentional? Honestly, that was not part of the plot, but it wasn't as intentional as I wanted it to be. I needed one of the 3 to lose in the first round, and it couldn't have been Ken and it couldn't have been Alex because Alex is the main character here. I'm sorry, let me rephrase it. It couldn't have been Ty and it couldn't have been Alex, because Alex is the main character, and Ty has something to prove in this tournament as well to himself and to Usanagi. So it had to be Ken, just matter of circumstance, process of elimination. That part. But since he's asleep, I can say this safely. Um, Ty does lose. I can't remember when he loses, but he loses. So there's that. And for those of you that are curious, she said if I would have picked Ty to lose in the first round, our son Tyson would have cried. And that's probably what would happen. Oh. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. It's been a hell of an hour. We've covered 4 chapters. Next episode, we will be at the end of Tigapagon Enter the Tiger, and we'll discuss the book. Then we'll move on to Tigapagon Taming the Dragon, which is focused heavily on Ty. So Tyson's going to love that. Until next time, guys, let's dive in.